Hello and welcome to Pucks on the Patio. I'm Jay,
I'm Al.
Jeff.
and we'll be discussing some Sabres hockey and NHL news or rumors that we discuss on a
Yep.
weekend basis. Um, if anybody has any comments, suggestions, you can always drop them in the comments section. New podcast, so we'll see how it goes.
It's mostly a sports show, but we'll talk about everything Buffalo related.
Yeah. And-
Bills, Bandits, Bisons, a little bit, everything in between.
Politics,
and
food,
beer.
Beer, lots of beer.
Lots of beer.
So yeah, if you notice us slurring our speech or forgetting names, it's probably because as the show goes on, we're more and more juiced or hammered. So we're gonna start the topic off on the upcoming draft, and maybe not so much who we want to choose, or I should say what player in particular Buffalo picked. I think more of the player in general we may be looking for
Type.
and
Type of
player. And of course, having 3 picks in the first round at 9, 16,
And 28.
so I don't know, Jeff, any ideas on who they might be looking at?
Forwards. I think the organization is deep in defensemen, and we need size, forwards with size. We have a lot of smaller size forwards on the team now, a lot of good prospects who are small, lots of skill, but to win your Stanley Cup, you need grit, you need size. I mean, Kadri's demonstrated that for Colorado, and you need that type of player in your lineup.
Absolutely, I would agree. We do get that with Cousins, and we get that somewhat with JJ, but they do have a smaller stature. Even Krebs, too, likes to play with a feisty edge, but I do believe size will be crucial. And I see it a lot on Twitter. A lot of the Sabres fans, we're not big enough, we're not gritty enough, we need more sandpaper. I do agree with that, especially when these kids are coming up. You seen it with Hughes last year, kind of getting bounced around from New Jersey, getting injured. I'd like to know that, not so much a goon, but that these kids are protected a little bit more as they grow together, and that grit would definitely help the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when you draft a bigger player, even if it takes a little bit longer to develop them, they always have that extra edge that they're a big guy and they can kind of handle themselves, even if they're an 18 or a 19-year-old kid. And all you have to do as a Sabres fan is look at Thompson and how well he's played this past season, and his size, I think, is a huge part of that, just using it and starting to use it into his game. And it kind of gives him a little bit of an edge over maybe a more skilled player, but someone that's on the smaller side that gets pushed around.
Yeah, definitely with that reach, he can get it done.
And sorry to disappoint the folks, it's not going to be Rob Ray that we're going to draft. Those days are over with. If you're living in La La Land and you want John Scott back or Rob Ray
Or Ryan Reeves.
Yeah.
The league is about scoring goals. And yeah, we need toughness, we need grit, but we need guys who are going to put the puck in the net. We've had enough of, these third and fourth line guys that finish the year with 5 goals. We want, draft some talented offense and some grit. Just as a topic maybe for a future podcast that's important to keep in mind is having a player who's willing to play gritty or play outside their comfort zone. Because as you mentioned, Cousins, we've seen him step up and throw the fists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not really his
Game.
role. It's not his game, exactly. And we can discuss that at a different day. I think it'd be
You
a
were
good
there
topic.
when Skinner starts doing it, but Jeff's been close a few times. I think he's just more of an annoyer, but I agree, as far as names I've heard in the draft, it's anything from Nazar to Geeky to I heard of Rudger McGrourty was another one, and of course I think that's how you say his name. I don't know, but Rudger, yeah, Rudger McGrourty. And somebody on social media had said, and they posted his interview that he likes to model his game after the Kachuk and Calgary. So who plays, with that
Who's got 100
physical
points.
edge. Yeah, so good pick by Calgary. So I mean, it would be great. I don't even expect a big star. We know where those land in the NHL, especially when they're entitled. But you think at 9 or maybe trading 9, I've heard, and moving down and getting 2 picks would be. But like you both have said, if they see somebody like with JJ Paterka, they might be willing to do that and trade in picks for a pick or other
Right.
picks.
Upgrade.
And unless you're getting some outrageous steal by trading a pick,
Yeah.
I think you need to keep that flow of talent and new players coming into your organization through your draft.
Absolutely.
And having 3 first-round picks is obviously, as Adams has said, it's a unusual and rare situation because he's got a pick in the beginning, he's got a pick in the end, and he's got a pick at the end,
Right.
in the middle, and at the end. And for him, that's a very unique situation for any GM, and it should be interesting to see how that works out.
You never know. I mean, not to say that this draft doesn't have any good young players, because it's a crapshoot. You never know what you're going to get. But, for him to have 3 first-round picks, even if 2 out of the 3 are really solid NHL players, that's a big improvement, especially after what you kind of traded away for and what you got back from it. I mean, it's always about building on your future and seeing where these teams, where you got these picks from, where they're at now and what they're going to do. It's kind of nice to see the possibility of what you're going to end up with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the Tampa Bay, the Avalanche, the majority of their team has been built through the draft. We now realize in a lot of teams that try to keep doing it through free agency and these big trades more often than not fail. And we've tried it. We've tried to speed up the rebuild. So I think it's crucial to keep the picks and definitely build within the organization. But speaking of trades and picks, Ryan Johnson was somebody that Adams talked about, and it led me to believe that if he can't sign him, he might be trading him maybe at the draft or further on, depending on what goes on with the contract talks or with the team. What's your take on that?
Well, I suppose that's a possibility. If he's not moving forward with the organization, it's always good to move on from him and to get something back in return, even if it's a late pick. I know a lot of people don't like hearing that, but if he's not even cracking an AHL roster, let alone an NHL roster, it's always good to at least get something back from an asset that's willing to leave. You take someone like in this offseason, we traded Robert Hagg to Florida, and we acquired a 6th-round pick. Now, that's not really a huge asset, but for someone that you're more than likely going to not sign back next year, you're at least getting something back.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, Pavel Datsyuk was a 6th-round pick, so you never can tell.
That's very
You can
true.
only,
though.
one can
Yeah.
only hope, folks. Only hope.
Sometimes you hit. Although
A gem in the rough.
we may trade for his contract anyways and bring
Yeah,
him
to hit
here,
the cap
because
floor.
we gotta hit that cap floor.
Or
Now he
another
just
Johnny Boychuk.
He did just retire, though, so.
We can't use it. That's another thing that, we'll get into farther along, but what did you guys think of the Craigster coming back? I'm not at all surprised, and it doesn't bother me. We were going to roll into our free agents, and I do believe he's going to sign another goalie. I don't know who it is or trade. I think Craig's excellent to have for insurance purposes, just in case UPL is injured, he can't do it. Maybe the goalie coming in, another goalie's injured. It's great, because when he was healthy, he played very well.
Oh, absolutely,
So.
yeah.
Goalie market is tough. There's a lot of goalies that are in demand. When we had our injury problems last year, I researched it, and we've discussed it before. that a lot of teams have a really good young goalie, or they have a really old good goalie, and there's very, very few of these middle of the road journeyman goalie that used to be around years ago. I think signing Adams has more or less indicated that signing Craig is not he's not, oh, I'm done, I got my goalie, I'm good for
Yeah.
next year.
Right.
You need 4 goalies. You need 2 in Rochester, you need 2 in Buffalo, and I think the way things have gone, you kind of see that you need that taxi squad goalie. You need
Yeah.
that third guy.
COVID returns.
So signing Anderson is just putting one of those pieces in place and saying, okay, I've got one. I've got UPL, who's maybe a 2 or 3 somewhere in there, and I still have to fill the rest. And I'm sure him and Meatballs have discussed the fact that these kids need to play in front of
Oh,
a
yes.
competent goalie,
Mhm.
and the fans want them to have a competent goalie. Not that Craig Anderson was incompetent. I'm not trying to imply that. What I'm saying is that, you know, running around and not a shot at any of the guys who played, but Tokarski and Hauser and Malcolm Subban, these guys were not NHL starting goalies.
Good guys, they're
No.
just not
Yeah,
ready for that
Right,
spot.
exactly. And, you know, I'm sure Adams is aware of what the need that he has to fill, and he knows that Craig's a good guy, just not the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I know he had that nagging injury, and then, you know, he played out of his mind prior to that and came back, and I think he always had that injury when he came back. Again, he's a great mentor for the kids. I think he'll be excellent for UPL. UPL is somebody that concerns me, and it's not up here, unlike a former goalie that left, and it's not, you know, it's not how he plays. I think he did very well here. It's the boy is made of glass, and a lot of people have said it. Now, you made a statement that, you know, you read about his
They
becoming a
talked,
man.
They talked to a lot of sports development people, and in his development, he is basically an 18-year-old kid who has the body weight and structure of a grown man. And while his muscular structure is of a 20-year-old or 22-year-old, his bone structure and joint structure is still a 17 or 18-year-old young man. So the extra weight with the physicality of what he's been doing as far as playing goal contributed to some of the injuries he had.
Yeah.
So as he continues to grow, as he is now, some of that will. A lot of goalies have hip surgery.
Oh yeah,
It's
many of
very
them
common.
do. Yeah.
Very common. So the people are like, "Ooh, he's ruined it." No, very common. Very common.
Yeah, well, you've played net, Al, so what's your,
I like Craig as he is for the team. I know he loves playing here. He loves the city, and the guys love him. So that's always great when you talk about having a nice locker room atmosphere. And I think if he can stay healthy, like most of the team, which on a side note has really crippled the team in the past 2 to 3 seasons, is injuries. I mean, when you're playing a 5th and 6th string goaltender, I don't care who you are in the league, you're not going to win. I mean, you could be Colorado, and so when Craig Anderson gets hurt, then UPL, then you're playing Dustin Toharski who gets hurt, then you trade for Malcolm Subban who gets hurt.
yeah.
It's it's awful, but if he can stay healthy and even play the 20 to 30 games a year as a solid backup, or even fill in a few games, he's a great go-to guy, and he didn't cost you anything, and he's a nice piece.
But he can't sing the Star Spangled Banner,
Oh, yeah.
the anthem,
Man
like
can sing.
Yeah,
Subban.
that's
Oh
true.
my
Man
God,
Man
I
can
was.
sing.
If anything, he should be doing it at the arena for our games. Hell with all that other Allen guy that they got that stepped down.
Doug
Doug
Allen.
Allen, sorry. Subban was the shit. So I mean, sign him for as a 3rd or 4th stringer, and let him sing.
I think one of the things that's really important too to remember with Craig is that you see championship teams that win, and down the line they'll say to a kid who played with someone when they were younger, what helped you get to this? When I came into the league, or my second year in the league, this guy was in our locker room,
Yes.
and he would talk to me, and he set me on the right path. And maybe it's 4 or 5 years down the road, and this player's already gone. But
Right.
it was that guy who set him on the right course.
Yeah.
Which we hope is what
Yeah.
Oposo did for Asplin.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, rolling into our free agents, I think really the only one out of our free agents that I would even, consider keeping would be Hennis Strozer, maybe Mark Pysick. And I think most of the fans agree with that. Mark would be more like an eighth defenseman.
Well, we never should have traded Mark Pysick to begin with.
Yeah, I know. I did not like that. Who was it? Was it Murray that did
Yeah,
it?
Murray
Oh,
traded
God.
him for Kulikov. So
I mean, just a botched trade. We were both upset. But, Marky, I think, again, he's a great mentor. He's a great eighth guy. He's not going to, play a ton of minutes. Vinny, I think a healthy Vinny is a 20-goal scorer on this team. What did he have this past year? 10 to 12?
I'd say about 10 to 12, yeah.
And he
something
plays
like that.
bigger than his size, and he's gritty. Now, if we can go out and get somebody even better than him, which is what I hope happens, who knows? But
Yeah,
your take on the FAs?
if he can score 20 goals and stay healthy, he's a tremendous skater.
Yes.
Vinny played wonderful when he was in Chicago. He seems like he's a team player and a good guy, and I would certainly be interested in having him back. I think at this point with the team's development, free agency is kind of like it's like an afterthought for
Yeah,
us. You know what
yeah.
I mean?
yeah.
You really do need to use free agency to fill holes on your way to your championship team and say, I need a seventh defenseman who's going to fill in case so-and-so gets hurt, or I need another goalie because, my starter's hurt, or Ben Bishop can't play, or, I need another forward who's got maybe a scoring touch, and I'm going to give up a draft pick to get him like Tampa did with Nick Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's really the time to look at free agency and say, okay, what are our needs?
Mm-hmm.
True, but don't forget, even after Anderson signs, and maybe I'm thinking Olofsson soon, and it was reported in the $5 million range, you're still going to have 20-something million to spend.
Yep.
And unfortunately, the league isn't going to give you a pass and go, oh, you want to wait and keep your cap for future, in another year or two. So to me, the goalie would definitely fill that. And I do think it might be somebody like Braden Holtby that comes in at a 2-year, maybe 8-10 million,
If
4 to 5 a year. You're still going to have to use that money, though.
If your team does not make the cap floor, as far as the salary cap goes, if you don't make the cap floor, you pay a penalty.
Right.
That's what you ends up.
That's what
happening.
happens.
Right.
It's not like they sit there and say, well, you can't put your team on the ice because you didn't make the
Well,
cap floor. You pay a
They
penalty.
may have to. I mean, I agree
So-
with the both of you, and I mean, you've said it too well. You don't want to overpay for Johnny Tavares, 30 years old, 8-year contract, an 8-year contract at 8 to 10 million a year. You're going to need it in a couple years, even within a year or two, when you have to sign Thompson or.
I mean, do you want to bring
Cousins or-
Fleury in for 1 year at $12 million?
If you
I'm
have
not
to hit the
opposed
cap
to it.
floor, I
And if he's,
suppose.
Fleury, I really wouldn't mind. I don't think he would come here. We're not a cup team. But he would be another great mentor. I think the guy has an excellent attitude. If I could sign him to a 2-year and go, you'll love it here, come in. Here's $8 million a year even. I mean, does it, at this rate, does it, you know what I mean?
Well, I think this is where we take our conversation back towards the draft.
Yeah.
Where you're at, all the GMs are there, and you're saying, okay, I need cap space,
Yeah.
and 2, you have needs, and you have cap space. If you take player X, I'll throw in a goalie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you throw me a prospect back, you throw me Ryan Johnson back because he's not going to sign with you anyways.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's where this year's draft becomes really interesting
True. Yeah, I do agree with you. Of course, I don't know in trade if you're. I guess you could get a goalie. There are teams with 3 and 4 goalies. Um,
There are
I
a lot of
don't know.
teams just struggling with cap.
Both.
That is Vegas was brought up. Of course, we know
Florida?
that.
Florida has already said they're willing to move Bobrovsky and retain half his salary as a cap move. I mean, I know a lot of people think, "Oh, Bob, look at him," but he's
Played
at
well in
least
playoffs.
he's at least a solid veteran goaltender, and if you can have him a few years down the stretch until Levi or UPL are really ready, you
Yeah.
know, it's a filler. It's an answer at least. You
Well,
know?
he wasn't the reason Florida lost. Like you
No.
said, he looked great in the playoffs.
His team didn't score.
The thing with Bob is, I think term wasn't it 4 or 5 more
4
years.
or 5 years. That's
I don't know if Adams is gonna go for that, knowing UPL, like you said, Levi and
And you know, there's
Portillo.
always rumors floating around. We're always linked to. Now we're still going today, linked to Jack Campbell in Toronto. You know, he's going to jump
would get
across
better
the
defense.
border to the U.S.
Jack Campbell, the asking price was $6 million, was reported today.
yeah. But if it's I wouldn't give him a long-term deal, even if we were there already. To me, he's still kind of unproven. I would still give him a short-term deal. How about 2 years, 12 million? You could do that. You're eating $6 million of cap space. If it doesn't
at
work
30
out,
years old, he can still be a solid player. When you start to get to
yeah.
Craig's age, or I'd even say Jonathan Quick's age, where he's hitting 36, 37, it starts to be a problem of how long can he play.
How about a 4-year deal that's front-loaded?
That's what I was
Yeah,
just gonna say.
or-
He
or
might
that,
want
so.
he might want more term because he is 30. I think he's gonna want to cash in on his performance. I think he would balk at a 2-year, but yeah, a 4-year
4-year,
front-loaded makes
first
a lot
year,
of
8.5,
sense. Yeah,
second year 6,
six, then
third year
maybe
3,
yep,
last year 2.
that would work.
You
I mean,
know.
that would work, and that would work with, how our cap is gonna go up with who we have to sign. That's all. Yeah, the goaltending is going to be a very interesting situation. I would love to steal him from Toronto. I'm sorry, Toronto. I would love it.
And you too, Biz.
Yeah, really, Biz. And, he kept them in a lot of games. They don't have a great defense. We have probably one of the youngest, best defense up and coming, at least. And you would think that, our team does play more of a defensive structure. I think the guy would fare well here. I really do.
The problem comes back to that it's just a goalie carousel.
Oh,
right
it
now.
is.
Oh,
I know
it is.
somebody
There's
might
so
throw
many
big
teams-
money at him.
Somebody wants one, or what's St. Louis doing with Husso and Billington?
Yeah,
and
Husso
what?
was one we were linked to, and I'm like, he's a young guy, but again, we have a lot of
Garrett
young
Sparks.
guys.
Garrett Sparks.
Oh,
Eric Sparks
God.
from LA, I'm telling you.
Is it Vegas or LA?
LA.
LA?
I would rather just take Quick add another year. At least he's
LA
proven.
has 6 goalies on their roster. I mean,
There you go. But I
um,
don't want somebody like somebody's old grandmother's underwear as a goalie here.
you got one that's
Another
41.
scrub.
You can't get much older than the
That's
one we
true.
got.
But I mean, no, I'm serious, guys. I mean, I would like to at least try to get in that 8th spot, and putting some crusty old ass goalie from Toronto that, I'm sorry, maybe he's decent,
If Don
but-
Cherry says they never should have traded him, who's
Is
gonna
that what he
argue with
said,
Don?
Don? Is that what you said? For real?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Sparks.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you could get the jersey.
Yeah, you never know.
Hey, I give everybody a chance. It's true, I do. I've been a lot of summer and I complain and bitch, but
He'd be a
Everybody
sparkling
gets a-
improvement over what we
yeah,
had.
sparkling improvement.
Another
sure.
thing, too, to add is the amount of teams, like, we've talked about before where teams have a really young and up-and-coming goalie, and they have a really kind of older backup.
Yeah.
But there's a few teams out there that they have 2 really sound goalies, like Columbus, like New York, and it's really interesting to see what they're going to do. If they're going to move one, if they're going to help. Obviously, New York's thinking they're a cup team. Columbus is kind of hanging around, and I
Yeah.
wonder if they're willing to move one of them to maybe help kind of push their team along. I don't know what their GMs have in mind. If Drury wants to do that, I know they're kind of the talk of the town now. They're after all the top free agents, but
I'm thinking, my thought is, would we be willing to move that late first for like the other, who was it in New York? Drury's.
The last report from New York is that there's 2 Russian players that want out. They've asked for trades. The forward, Russian forward, and I don't recall his name right now, and the backup goalie, Grigoriev.
Yeah,
He
okay,
wants out.
Georgiev or Georgiev,
Yeah,
that's who
Georgiev.
I'm thinking of.
He wants
What a
out.
first pry him. I mean, it's a late first is a first. He's
I
a
wouldn't
young
give him a
goalie.
first.
No,
No.
maybe Johnson then, but they have a lot of prospects. So I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. And I did hear about the Russian forward, and there was a rumor going pretty much, I think, on and off through the year, towards the end of the year, that he was going to
Yeah, he wants
bail.
out.
Yeah.
side note, did you guys hear about the Flyers goalie prospect? He was in Russia. His name is Ilya Predorov, I believe his name is. He got sent back to Russia for military evasion.
Oh, jeez.
And yeah, they're not like letting him go. They're not letting him leave the country. I guess he's at some hospital now
Oh my
under
God.
guard,
Well,
and they don't know if they're going to like send him to prison or. And the Flyers GM basically said we're aware of the situation, but
Well, I think I read today something's going on with Pilot too, where he's leaving. He was playing in the KHL, and I think they're trying to get him over here. I don't know though. I couldn't read the article. I didn't have the time.
well, if
So-
you're a Flyers goalie, the Russians probably did him a favor by getting him out of their system because we all know the Flyers just absolutely destroy goalies.
There's a I'd
That's
say
where good
another
goalies go to
Toronto
die,
2.0, but
yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, we might have other fans on here of other teams, but
I'm not sorry.
it's like us in our 10-year rebuild. So everybody gets roasted on this podcast, even us.
Our 10-year rebuild will be a good subject for our another podcast in the future. So
Yeah.
yes, that will.
absolutely.
It'll be a big topic.
and I'm sure everybody will have a ton of comments about that.
But
We
you
roast
know,
everybody here, so
Yeah, we
nobody's
do.
safe.
nobody. As far as free agents, we were going to discuss that, and obviously, I know Adams had mentioned bringing in a veteran defenseman if he could around the trade deadline. Didn't happen for Powers. Your thoughts, guys, on what you think as far as the free agents? I was kind of high on Klinberg, and then a couple people told me that defensively he wasn't as great in the playoffs. I thought the guy was fine. I mean, he's not like, another, Lindholm but I mean, I thought, and it would eat up some cap space. Why not bring him in? He could still put up some points, obviously, but maybe. I also thought Vegas, maybe Martinez, as far as cap relief there. I know Marty and the Duffer on what was it? Instigators had mentioned trying to pry Shea Theodore from there, but I think they would want a lot. So, just your take on what you guys like free agent defensemen.
The problem with defensive defensemen, if that's the type of player, or veteran defenseman that he's looking to pair with Power, the problem is that they're not. There's a lot of them in the league. And really, until you get to like playoff time, they're not like real valuable.
Right. Yeah.
They throw them around the league like, whatever. Here, future considerations, 7th round pick, like we did with Haig and Scandella. We got some value back for him, but it wasn't like we got first overall picks for him. So.
But even Hag, I would like an upgrade over that type of player. We could have probably just.
A lot of the defensemen that you mentioned are all flash. They're high end
That's
offensive
true.
defensemen, and I don't really think that's the kind of guy that he's looking for. I think he's looking for a little bit more of an anchor guy back there that some of them fill the role similar to what a Poso is for the forwards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I could see that being kind of the case. I thought for a while maybe, depending on his cap situation and where he is, maybe a Brett Burns type of leader.
Oh
but
yeah, I forgot about
but with
Brett.
his cap and the fact of how much he produces for San Jose, I kind of backed out. So honestly, I really don't know. I don't know who's available across the league, but I'd like a kind of an older, kind of underground player. Maybe more of like, of course he plays in Toronto now, but kind of a Giordano type of defenseman where he can come in and fill in and be that fifth, sixth defenseman.
Brett Burns was very enticing, and now I'm thinking about it more, and only because his contract it is 7 or 8 million. I'm sorry, I'd have to bring it back up. I think he's only signed another two years, maybe three tops. And I know they wanted to load either him, Carlson, which is crazy. Vlasic is another crazy one. And I thought, why not Ryan Johnson for him? A prospect, maybe with a pick. It would free up a lot of cap room. They'd be getting a good defensive prospect, or maybe I hate to say it, Bryson. You'd be getting Brett Burns back, and I mean, he plays both ends of the ice. I've liked him a long time. I know you're like,
Well, I
he's
think
from the 44th Infantry,
right,
but
with the beard and all that. I think the idea would be to really use your cap space situation to attack teams that are up against it, and they need to have some more flexibility in their pockets. I think that's one option. I would love to get Morrissey away from Winnipeg.
oh yeah,
Winnipeg,
Yeah.
that would be an excellent.
Winnipeg
yeah,
is
think of it.
kind of on the fence about what they're going to do because they just really hired their head coach, and whether they're going to retool, rebuild, blah blah blah. I mean, they're talking about trading, their captain. They're talking about are they going to rebuild the team and what they're going to do. And I think Morrissey would be a great target to come in and fill in on your defense for 4 or 5 years, maybe at reduced minutes. He can hold down that bottom pair.
Yeah, actually, that's not a bad call out at all. I mean, and, obviously, we really don't know what. I mean, only Adams knows who's kind of available. What teams are lulling around, what players or what moves they want to make. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, you said he didn't think he was going to go after any FA forwards. I knew he would. And again, Vinny Trocheck is somebody I've always, I've wanted now. I wanted him when he played for, was it Florida? He would be an excellent second line center, defensive, offensive. Kind of he was probably Carolina's best and only player. Sorry, that showed up. I know they'll probably re-sign him, but then again, I'm looking at lower tier players as forwards. We're not going to go out and get Johnny Gaudreau. We're not, people think this, go sign him. No.
Magnapani.
Yeah, Mangiapane would be another nice piece, but we are not going to go out and spend.
Pat
I'd
Kane.
be shocked. Yeah, Patrick Kane.
Trade
We
for
could get him for
Patrick
nothing
Kane.
next year. $9-10 million on a 30-year-old player. It's it's just not feasible. It wouldn't be smart because we're not going to win a cup this year, probably next year. I can't see it. So I mean, anybody like the forwards out there? Do you guys got your eyes on anybody?
As far as free agency, I can't say that I've gone down the list to see who's really going to be available because I don't really think Adams is diving too deep into it because it's not going to be anybody that's on your top two lines. If he does pick players up, it's going to be again that third and fourth line role.
He did say top six and a bottom six, and he did say at the deadline when the reporters were kind of on his case, you didn't do nothing. Hey, I planted seeds for next year.
Yeah.
So I think he's already been in talks. Maybe again, it isn't a trade. Maybe it's another team moving out salary. Al, what's your take? Who would you
Well,
like?
now that you said that, there really isn't with the big names out there. There's not really anyone I'd be willing to throw that kind of money at.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're talking about the guys that people are reading into that this person's going here, this person's going there, Claude Giroux and Evgeny Malkin and Johnny Gaudreau, there isn't anyone that you're going to just plug in the lineup that you're going to be a cup contender, or it's going to make your team to the point where you're going to speed up your rebuild, and it's just not worth it when down the road you're going to have to sign the likes of Thompson and Darlene and Powers and things like that.
Now,
So
if Columbus wants to move away from Patrick Laine, who's only 24 years old, do you want to
Yeah.
throw money at
that's
Laine?
interesting.
That might be, yeah, that could be a player, and I know a couple people have told me, gee, I think they're going to do something big this week, maybe, and they're like, I didn't read any rumors, and probably by the time people might watch this, it's come and gone, but, maybe that type of player that fits the mold of the team, sharpshooter, young, would they take a first and a prospect, you know what I mean? Is he going to sign there long term? I mean, who knows? It's
And you never really do know. There's big names that people kind of throw out there, and they're going to get traded, or they're looking to leave. And then there's guys kind of like Fiala, whose name was out there, but they really didn't link him to LA, and he went to LA. So you never know behind the scenes.
well, I know like Jeff there. It's stated that and it's true. The players that get traded, you never hear about. It's usually quiet. I mean, there are some the names always out there. Drager might put it up, McKenzie, and they end up going. But a lot of the trades that do come down, or free agent signings you don't think would ever go there, you don't read about. So it's hockey, I guess. I mean.
Exactly. This past at the draft, at the deadline, it was rumored that Mark Pysyk was going to go, Colin Miller, all these other guys. I think Victor Olofsson's name was out there to the Rangers.
God.
And there just wasn't anything there for our GM to kind of really move them. And sometimes that's the way it is too. That there is no movement. It isn't worth the trade. And with the GM that we have now, I think he's more wary and more cautious of that. I think he's not to really, kiss his rear end, but I think he's a really smart GM in what he does. And
No,
the type
absolutely.
of things he does.
And I think, when he was just recently on, he pretty much said, and I read into him whether you like people or not, you can kind of read into what they're talking about, and I like Kevin Adams, but he doesn't want to break up the relationship in the core of this team. So I tend to agree with both of you if it makes sense, and it's a veteran winger with some grit that can come in, or that stay-at-home D that can help. He'll bring him in. He'll eat up some cap space, but it won't be crazy. And if people think, it's going to be some huge star, cough, Jack Eichel, that comes in and could possibly stain or poison the locker room yet. And I'm not saying these players would, but it's a possibility. This young core now is they're like family. They're brothers, and they want to grow together, and you could tell build a championship here. So I just don't think they want, whoever they bring in is going to be a team first mentality for sure.
I think that goes full circle to where we started with the draft.
Yeah.
Is that the guys that they're going to draft have to have that mindset and make that impression when they're doing their one-on-one interviews. That this guy, he's got a good head on his shoulders, or he seems very mature, or he seems like, doesn't he just sound like Dylan when he's talking?
Right. Yeah.
And get a feel for a guy that really, and I know Brandon Bean and Sean McDermott have used the same techniques in interview process when they're drafting for the Bills. That when we sat and we talked to this guy, boy, he was really an amazing person.
Josh Allen.
Right.
Yeah.
So, if, when you look and see, well, who are they chasing in free agency, or who are they interested in trading for, or who are they drafting, coming full circle in our conversation, I think a lot of it is determined by, who they sit down to and who they talk to, and who fits their needs, who fits the team, because you need so many different pieces on your team to win a championship that they ultimately know between him and Donnie what that right person is.
Yeah, and he's in talks with them all the time. Well, we will know soon enough. Probably about a week away. So, but I think we're gonna wrap it up. We all need beers, so
We
thanks
won't be
everybody.
coming to you from Quebec either. We'll be right in the same backyard. We're
Yeah.
not
Buffalo, New York.
Yes, thanks for tuning
Peace
in,
out,
guys.
folks. Peace
Again,
out.
if
Be
you
safe.
have any,
Happy 4th of July.
guys, happy 4th. Stay safe. If you got any comments or any topics you want to discuss, just drop us a comment. And we hope to do this hopefully every week, every other week if we can. It's just for fun. If you can, I guess, forward it to anyone, or, we'd appreciate it.
We're going to lead off with nasty, rotten comments. Let's see you make your own podcast.
Exactly. We can take,
Friendly criticism
Yes,
is
constructive, but
appreciated to kind of help us kind of
yeah,
become
better
better.
podcasters.
No nasty comments.
Don't be a
please.
douchebag,
Yeah,
okay?
we're just having fun.
So,
Have a good
from
week.
Buffalo, peace!